Hey everyone, my name is Weston Stokes, the writer and director of The Maid of Orléans. The Maid of Orléans is a film following a Catholic friar, Louis, and his encounter with Joan of Arc the night before her execution. Louis, struggling with his faith in God, hears word of the girl who allegedly speaks directly to him. Out of jealousy, he goes to visit the girl and attempt to squeeze a confession out of her, to know for sure whether or not she's a liar, and whether or not God chose her over himself. Let's take a look at a scene from the film in which Louis attempts to reach Joan only to have the girl turn the tables back on him. Afterwards, we'll talk with our director of photography, Wes Collins, about the many elements of the scene and how it changed from our initial stages of development.
You do not have to die a heretic.
Are you a believer?
Yes,
In what?
I don't understand.
What do you believe in?
God, the church,
You and many others.
and what do you believe in? All the battles, all the victories, for what?
Charles is king.
And where is he now? After every battle won, after every deed done, where is he for you? You were wrong. You could never save France. Can't even save yourself. But I can. Stand up and confess.
You say you believe in God? You say you believe in the church? I too held these convictions. I believed. And then a voice from the heavens did fill mine ears, and now I know them to be true. What do you know?
Honestly, almost like when I look back at some of our early like shot designs and storyboards, like the perspective was almost completely different. Like our initial idea of the camera being in front of Joan, and we see her face in the foreground, and then we pan as Louis goes and sits down. I mean, that to me that just has a completely different feel. I mean, one, we're seeing both of them and connecting them in the shot, but also we're seeing it from her perspective, whereas I think what we ended up going with, which is the right decision, was to stay much more grounded in his perspective.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, because actually even on shots where he's standing, we had her in the foreground. It was like an over the shoulder, and then we sort of dollied past her, and now she's still in the foreground but on the right. We initially sort of changed that just to not connect them. We didn't want to put them in the same frame yet, but yeah, you're right that it totally changes. It totally puts it on her perspective. Like, we're so close to her rather than being with him when he's really the perspective that we're with throughout the whole film.
And then I think that was the genesis of the pillar shot was, we didn't want to just keep shooting single and, have this repetitive feel. So, we came up with a way to have them both in the same frame, yet separate them.
And I think we came up with this like really late as well. Like 2 weeks before we shot that we thought maybe we'd do this. And we were a little hesitant because we didn't know if it would feel weird because technically we're sort of looking through the walls. It's like we took 2 of the walls out just so we could shoot at the sort of pillar construction that, holds everything up. So it is kind of weird. We're not inside the cell with them. We're looking through from far away, or they're just completely disconnected like in this one.
Do you have early sketches of the original art design? And
yeah, because also originally we wouldn't even have been able to do this. The cell was a lot more, everything was just more realistic. The window on the wall wasn't shaped like a cross. It was stone and brick, and it was also in color, which is completely different, which has a completely different feel to it.
Yeah, I think one of our biggest motivations for this switch in the whole art style and look of the film, for me, it was always about stripping everything away to really heighten the performances and the characters. It's about the characters. It's not about the space that they're in. I think it even being stripped away and brutalist and all that, I think that contributes to the story even more because you're just purely sucked into the performances.
A realistic period piece, I feel like really gets people thinking about just the church at that time and the history of it and, what really happened here, like who was this person. It gets people thinking about, I think, all the wrong things. One of our producers, she told me that initially she thought this was sort of a critique of the church when she first read the script and got the idea. And I think that's not really what it's about at all. It's really about these 2 characters and their sort of inner psyches, what they believe in, and how they sort of live out what they claim to believe in. So yeah, I think stripping it back and making it almost exist in this sort of in a void only allows the audience to think about these 2 people rather than the surrounding sort of world around them, like the church and the history of, all the politics of the 100 Years' War and everything like that. That's a super subtle dolly move.
I just wish I nailed that tilt down better every time I watch this.
We originally had, we have her dolly move too. Like we showed more of her, and then we also tracked, like they happened, I guess we would intercut those. We just initially, by default, showed more of her. But when we sort of decided to like pull that back and like keep the audience sort of guessing and like wanting to see more, that dolly move kind of disappeared.
Sort of a happy accident that happened for us was we wound up having to use the bare floor of the studio that we were shooting in. And initially I was like, this is going to ruin everything that we're going for. We're going to get so much bounce and return off this floor. And it wound up actually being a blessing in disguise because, when Louis, whenever he looks at her, we get this beautiful catch light and eye light in his eyes. And then when she asks him, what do you believe in? He looks up to the sky and says God and the church. And when he looks up, that eye light is gone.
It says so much, like, of course, with just no words. I also love this little hair flip she does right here. I used to kind of hate it, but I think it gives, I don't know, I think it gives a good amount of sass to her character. This next part where she talks to him, I feel like she was initially playing it a lot more sassy. Like, when you do research about Joan of Arc, you learn she kind of, has a mouth on her. She talks back and she kind of knows exactly what to say and when to say it. And so our actress, I think, took that and sort of ran with it. But I think we really had to pull it back. So I let her know that, to a liar, the truth is the worst thing. You don't have to paint it up with anything or decorate it anyway. It kind of reminds me of, when your mom finds that you've been caught in a lie, she doesn't have to sort of sass talk you. Just saying she knows you lied is enough to just make you go like, oh shit.
Yeah.
So that's really what I told her about. And I think she played it a lot better now because when she says that sort of, what do you know? She's asking a genuine question. And yet to Louis, and by proxy to us, because we're watching through his perspective, it sounds like she's sort of like poking him and prodding at him. when really she just asked this like genuine question, but the way it comes across because of the context of who he is and his character and what he believes in, like just makes it feel like almost like a gut punch the way she says that.
You know, it's so easy to believe these performances, and they're so consistent throughout. I mean, I get lost in it every time I watch it, and I was there on set filming it. You know, I know exactly where we had things positioned and all that, and I still, you know, fall into this space with these characters.
Just the way he sort of delivers all these things, like just him saying, you know, you couldn't save France, you can't save yourself, you know, but I can. It doesn't sound cheesy. It doesn't sound, and it is sort of theatrical dialogue. I think like it's not completely natural, but it feels that way because the actors really took it in the only direction I think it could go. It really shows us like him putting himself, you know, above God in a lot of ways. It comes across just really, really dark. So now we really have this really impactful moment where she finally stands up and we finally see her face, and she really, I think, holds up a mirror he hasn't seen before, really pointing to who he actually is as a person. You know, he sees himself as this sort of divine figure, and we see that as he sort of puts himself in the light and says, you know, I can save you. And I feel like she really just strips that down by saying so little.